His peace and blessings upon the last and final messenger. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to everyone. So I'm recovering from something, and I have still a little bit of a cough. So if I sound a little bit lower than normal or slower than normal, that's why. And please excuse me for my occasional pauses to cough. So Brother Jamal asked me to say a few comments about these wildfires. And the question of natural disasters is a question of belief. It's a very long conversation. And I only have a few minutes to present this to you. So if there's something about this topic you want a little bit more information about, please don't hesitate to ask a question during the Q&A portion. When it comes to natural disasters, some natural disasters are natural. This is how Allah created the universe. And the wisdom behind it, at least for the believers, is expiation of sins. Right? When somebody dies a quote-unquote unnatural death, a sudden death, that serves for the believer as a form of purifying them from their sins and raising their ranks in the afterlife. So while it might seem like a loss in this life, it is a huge profit in the afterlife. Sometimes natural disasters are the result of our own negligence. Our own negligence. You hear in the news how a lot of the Californian wildfires could be prevented or severely mitigated if they just clean up the forests every so many years, right? So there's an element of negligence. You take care of the world, you take care of the natural cycle, you follow that, and when these natural phenomenons happen, you'll mitigate it. So one clear example is here in America, here in California, a few years ago, there was a 7.1 earthquake about 300 miles north of here. It didn't do any damage whatsoever. I mean, it was very minimal. But a weaker earthquake in another part of the world cost the lives of tens of thousands of people. Well, what's the difference? Sometimes the difference is America has very strict laws regarding regulations, engineering, inspections, permits, and whatnot. And so when something like this happens, we've already taken the precautions that protect us from it. While other areas of the world, they don't. I mean, it's almost careless. They'll get around permits, they'll lie about permits, they'll do things illegally, and then when a natural disaster comes, it collapses. That's another reason. A third reason is that it's a punishment from God. I mean, it is a punishment from God. And the Quran is full of stories of societies that they reached a high level of injustices and oppression. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intervened and put them in their place. Right? Now, when it comes to these wildfires, we're being bombarded with stuff on social media, from conspiracy theories of the far right to this is all climate change of the far left. And the Muslims come in and we're scratching our heads thinking how Palisades is the home to some very big Zionists who made genocidal comments, and the aftermath of this neighborhood looks like something out of Gaza. So we're sitting there scratching our heads saying, is this from Allah? Is this kind of the punishments that Allah talks about in the Quran? People are asking these questions. And another thing, the Golden Globes, I think it was the other day, right? All these celebrities come together and they joke around and stuff. Well, one of these celebrities had this joke where she said, we're keeping tallies of things that are repeated. And so cast and crew was repeated 11 times, mom was repeated 3 times, and God, the creator of the universe, wasn't mentioned once. And everybody starts laughing. And now the Hollywood sign is up in flames. Okay, is there something going on here? People are asking the question, right? And then Trump makes a statement, all hell will break out in the Middle East if, X, Y, and Z doesn't happen. And now people are saying it's hell in LA. Are these connected? I mean, we can ask the question, have the conversation. Sometimes people are evil. They really are. And God comes in and intervenes because human intervention is simply not putting them in place. So what are the realities of what's going on in LA? I mean, that's a longer conversation that we can or don't really need to have. But what I will say, following up on that, is that as far as I'm aware, our Prophet, ﷺ, as far as I'm aware, never celebrated the pain and misery of anyone, including his enemies. He never celebrated the tribulations of his enemies. He never gloated and rubbed it in their faces, although sometimes he did make dua against them. Let's be balanced here. And so, loss of life, property, how does that work? And the answer is, for some people, it's a test that's meant to build them, and Allah will replace what they lost. For other people, God is putting them in their place. He's putting them in their place, right? And I don't know what it is about America. Is it just America? The average American is a decent person and they have mercy in their hearts? Or the average American is just naive? We tend to have this image that there's no such thing as evil. Yeah, there is. And again, when the evil reaches a certain level, God interjects. What can we do as Muslims in SoCal to help? Well, the certain Muslim organizations like Shura Council, Islamic Relief, and whatnot are currently in the collaboration phase so that we can come up with a strategic plan to help those who are displaced. Remember, we look at Malibu and the Palisades and whatnot, and we say these guys are multimillionaires, they can rebuild their homes, why should we help them? Maybe that's true, but they're not the only ones being affected. You have people in Pasadena or whatever that city is called in that area who are average working Americans. And they don't have millions of dollars in the bank that they can just rebuild or go somewhere else and rebuild. So they need our help. And we will help them irrespective of their race, their religion, their background. We will help them not because necessarily we're doing it for them. We're doing it because that's what God wants us to do. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do. And our Prophet, peace be upon him, would always behave with excellence towards anyone and everyone. So just be on the lookout for upcoming opportunities, volunteer opportunities, donation opportunities. I know Islamic Relief they have a meeting tomorrow, which I'll be a part of, to begin to discuss what they need from, for example, mosques, to serve as a place where they collect dry foods, water, etc., that will then be collected by them and distributed on the victims of this tragedy. When it comes to the prayer for rain, Salat al-Istisqa, did you all do it here or dua, right? So the Prophet, peace be upon him, teaches us that when we need rain, there's a certain prayer that we can do. And when I say prayer, I mean both an actual prayer, salah, and a prayer, an invocation or supplication. He once did it as part of Jum'ah prayer. He made a dua. And in other times, he did it as a completely separate prayer. Today, I did it as part of the Jum'ah prayer. We made a dua, and I believe the same thing here, right? And so what we are doing is we're essentially asking God to send us rain. And we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers that dua. And if he answers it, then the hope is that it will help put out these fires, so that it doesn't become worse and worse. Should we use these fires as a reminder for ourselves of how quickly things can change? Of course. I mean, I think it's very, very humbling to see people who are the richest of rich, who feel as though they are the securest of secure, people who whether out of arrogance or just exploitation of the system, see themselves as above the law. You know, some of these individuals who lost their homes, their properties, you know, made previous statements saying that only real ballers pay no taxes and whatnot. So look at them now. I mean, it just overnight lost everything. I mean, it's truly, it really should cause reflection in our minds. So reflect. And hopefully in that reflection comes humility, comes compassion, comes excellence. I took a lot of time, so I'll go ahead and stop here. Again, if you have any follow-up questions on that, please feel free to ask, or the floor is all yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Chef Tarik. I appreciate it. Given the situation, I felt it was very important just to touch on a few points, just so we have some clarity as well. But again, this is where it's open QA, so you can ask any questions that you have. Of course, we like to give preference to our brothers and sisters that are new to Islam or they're on the journey to learn more. So if you have any questions, raise your hand, and I'll bring you over the mic, inshallah. All in the beginning is like this. It takes like one or two people, and then Bismillah. Yeah. Otherwise, I have to call somebody. So, no question. Sure. Okay, we come, Sister Jennifer.
Assalamu alaikum.
Kum salam.
So I just had a question. I just want to know if men, if it's like sunnah to cover their hair, like
Is
to
it
wear the
sunnah-
turban.
Is it sunnah for men to cover their heads? No.
Is it like the people that do it? Are there different Muslims or?
No, I think it just goes back to culture.
Okay, thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Kum salam.
I just want to thank you so much, brother, for mentioning our situation here in California in the fire and what you said about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As young people here in this conference or meeting, I just want to remind them to stay positive in their act in the social media, and how we can support those. I will mention something happening in I'm from Bowman, Texas. We have a church. It's not a church, a temple, I think, for Jewish people. Somehow they break the windows. So as a Muslim community, we gather together. We build that window, or we buy a new window. So as young Muslim community, we can unite it together with other Islamic centers or mosques to do something. And sometimes you see that, we have these people have insurance in their houses, is to pay them back, but that's not the case. These people lost their memories, their father, that there's a lot of things that they lost in this fire. So prayer, and you mentioned also as a dua for istisqa, salat al-istisqa, that is the most important. Any one of us can do that by yourself at home. So repeat that, and while you are in sujood, please repeat that over and over. So just prayer for these people. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Going back to the topic of fires, how can we conceptualize the aspect of arsons and people that take advantage? Perhaps is it possible that people might take advantage of Allah's decree, whether positive or negative, and they are indeed not with Allah, if you know what I mean?
Can you reword your question?
How can we conceptualize those that are perpetuating arson if this were a decree from Allah, would arsonists be considered part of that decree? Let's say if it were a punishment. I'm not saying it is.
I mean, if let's just kind of aside from this, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishes, he punishes with justice, right? And therefore, that punishment afflicts those who deserve it. And if a group of people aren't afflicted, they're not harmed by what is a punishment, then their sins weren't enough to have been punished for them, right? So again, I'm not sure if I fully understand your question. If your question is the sins of the SoCal Muslim community, did our sins contribute to this? The answer is no, because we weren't affected by it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant arsons. People that deliberately start fires.
People who deliberately start fires, what about them?
Arsons. How do we conceptualize when people deliberately start a fire?
How do we reconcile that with it being a punishment?
If that were the case, so let's say there is a punishment,
Hmm.
but there are also people that take advantage of said fire to create even more damage.
So there's a principle, I wouldn't call it principle, there's a saying by the Muslim scholars, إِنَّمَا يُسَلِّطُ اللَّهُ الظَّالِمَ عَلَى الظَّالِمِ. Allah will send an oppressor against an oppressor. He will send a wrongdoer against a wrongdoer. So they're both wrong. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses this wrongdoer to punish another wrongdoer.
Thank you.
Now again, be careful with social media. Like we have no idea when all these images of people throwing fire, we have no idea when they happened, where they're happening. Just don't trust there's a caption and that means it's actually happening. It could be, but not necessarily, right? I wouldn't doubt that there are people who want to try and just create destruction, but let's just be careful of how things spread.
All right, brothers, put us on the scoreboard today, inshallah. Inshallah.
Sheikh, the sister's question, I think if I want to elaborate, she's asking the action of arsonist who started the fire, is that in a greater plan of Allah to cause harm, to cause whoever in that community lives punishment to all of
I
them?
can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Try.
Okay. So what the sister said in my mind is the action of an arsonist who started the fire and that caused so much harm and damage to the people, is that part of the Allah's greater plan to punish those people who have done
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. It doesn't make that the one who did it innocent, by the way.
All right, just looking at time, maybe like 25 minutes, so time's going fast. I'm sure everybody has questions.
Salam alaikum.
Salam.
So, what will be a good surah to recite for my son is about to start driving, so I wanna do like a surah or something for him that he's gonna be now on his own behind the wheel. He's a teenager, and as a mom, it's just like I'm worried. I know sooner or later he's gonna start driving, but I wanna do like a prayer or something for him that he's gonna start driving on his own now.
Just make dua
So-
for him. It doesn't have to be a surah.
Dua.
Yeah.
So,
Just dua. Dua.
Dua and a GPS tracker in his car, so you know where he's going.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Shaykh.
Salam.
I wanted to ask, what's the significance of reading Surah Yasin at someone's funeral or when someone passes, they read it? Is that from the Sunnah? And again, what's the
The
significance?
scholars debated a lot about whether we can attribute that to the Sunnah. In other words, when we say attributed to the Sunnah, what we mean is this is something that the Prophet ﷺ either consistently did or encouraged us to do. But what we can agree on is that the surah itself has a lot of elements that are relevant to a person's passing. So, for example, part of the etiquettes of engaging somebody who's passing is encouraging them to say the shahada, right? For it to be their final words that they say. Also, to help them become optimistic, to give them optimism that you're going to meet Allah, you're going to meet forgiveness, there's paradise, etc. So you find these elements in Surah Yasin. And so even if we don't attribute it to the Sunnah, we find that the surah itself will help remind the individual who is passing of these things.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. One quick question too. Reading surah or reading the Quran at someone's funeral, like if their body is like right in front of you, is that permissible too? Last question.
It's permissible, but what the Prophet ﷺ consistently did was make dua, saying, "Oh Allah, forgive him, oh Allah, give him steadfastness when he's asked or she's asked."
Going back to the fire and what Trump said about hell will break out loose in the Middle East, and a lot of people celebrated that in the United States. I know some
Celebrating
people,
what?
that hell will break out loose in the
Mhm.
Middle East if the Palestinians don't turn the hostages back.
Yeah.
So the fire happens, and now you look at James Wood, for example.
Hmm.
About a few months ago, he tweeted something that
Kill them
no
all.
ceasefire, compassion to the Palestinian or something. And yesterday he was crying on CNN,
Yep.
crying, completely crying about $10 million home, which is nothing to him, and he can build it. Would I celebrate it? I did. I celebrate his destruction of his home because he celebrated our destructions in Gaza.
Mhm.
Now, a lot of people, they look at me as a bad person
Not at all.
because I do celebrate it every day.
Not at all.
Everybody asks me about how you doing with the fire. I'm okay. I'm happy. I walk with my dog, Windy, in Anaheim. I'm happy. They get upset with me, my family, from Venezuela, from Mexico, from Lebanon, from Miami, wherever. I'm happy about it. I'm sorry.
What
What
are you
else can I
sorry
say?
about?
Nobody was sorry when the Zionists killed my family in Lebanon, right?
Right.
So one
No.
for one,
I don't
an
see
eye for an eye.
I don't see your contentment as unethical. Do you understand what
No, I didn't get it completely. I'm sorry.
your feelings aren't unwarranted. They're not wrong.
Okay. But people will look at me and they think I'm saying it in sarcastic way, which I not saying it in sarcastic way.
Yeah, and it goes back to what I'm saying. I don't know, for whatever reason, Americans are, again, is it something they're good in heart, generally speaking, or they're very naive? They don't, the average American doesn't realize there are evil people. And so anything that happens to America or Americans, it's, oh my God, how can this happen? And okay, there are evil people in America and beyond America. There are evil people. And what we're taught in the Quran is when people are punished, these aren't just innocent people living their lives. These are criminals, whether people realize it or not. I mean, Allah is not just sitting above his throne saying, oh, let's go ahead and have some fun and all right, let's see what happens here. Again, it really begs the question, this area, Palisades, that is a hub for Zionists. And some people are even claiming that the attacks against the UCLA encampment protesters were primarily from this area. I don't know if that's true or not, but research, I mean, this should be looked into. And if this is an area where people who are a source of mischief and death and destruction on earth, and this is happening to them, well, do they deserve it?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Assalam alaikum.
For in the moment of our passing, we ask the whoever kind of takes care of us, right? If a non-believer picks up our body, we're asking them to not do an autopsy or embalm us, right? My question is, are we allowed to be organ donors?
Sure. So when it comes to organ donations, there are two ways to donate. Either donate while you are alive or donate after death. When it comes to after death, scholars differed, but the opinion that I follow is that that goes back to you. You want to donate your organs, that's up to you. When it comes to while being alive, there are certain conditions, and that is the organ that you donate is an organ that your body will function normally without it. And as far as I'm aware, and if there's anyone in the medical field here, please do correct me. As far as I'm aware, the only possible organ that can be donated while alive is the kidney, maybe, right? But that's my answer to that question. And again, scholars differed.
Thank you, Shaykh.
Assalamualaikum. I have a couple of questions, though, 5. The first one is usually when we go to the cemetery, I don't know what to do to the person. What is what you should do? Like, you just make dua, or you can read a surah from the Quran, or what do you do?
When you visit a Muslim cemetery, when the Prophet ﷺ would visit a cemetery, he would make dua for those who are deceased. There's a specific dua that he would make. So I would look that up, memorize it, and that's the best dua you can make.
Okay.
But in general, we make dua for those who have passed on.
And I see people pouring water. Is that like a culture thing?
It's
or-
a kind of a certain understanding of a particular hadith that is also mixed with certain cultural aspects. But water being poured on a grave is not going to benefit somebody under the grave. What's going to benefit them is dua.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Second question is, if somebody is looking into the Islam, what would you be your recommendations for them?
Well, I try and engage the individual first and try and maybe make an educated guess about what they're really searching for, and then present to them Islam in a way that talks to what they're looking for. So I don't think there's a, kind of a blanket statement here. I've heard of stories of individuals accepting Islam because of Islam's inheritance laws. He just happened to be an inheritance lawyer. So it's his language, right? So I think different people are looking for different things, and Islam has something to say about all of human affairs. So it's just about knowing, where is this person, where are they at right now, what are they looking for, and what does Islam present in terms of that.
Okay. Can you elaborate, like, why do women wear hijab when they become Muslim?
And why men don't?
No. Just as a general, like, why do women cover their hair?
Because women, both men and women, see a woman's body in a certain way, right? And women love to adorn themselves. and women are a source of beauty in a way that men aren't. Men have a source of beauty, but it just doesn't come normally through their body. It comes through other things. And therefore, part of a lady's relationship and her spiritual journey with God is to moderate her perception of beauty and the extent to which she freely uses her beauty in the public. And therefore, the hijab is a symbol not just of modesty, it's a symbol of dedication. And, my wife, who wears hijab and is from Jordan, when she first came here, why do people look at me? Don't people know what the hijab is? And I told her they know what the hijab is, but they also know what it represents. And sometimes some people can't stand what it represents. So that's why they sometimes give you the look. So, throughout human history, the righteous women have always worn a form of hijab. And whenever the Virgin Mary is displayed, even by non-Muslims, she's displayed with a hijab, right? So that's kind of a glimpse, and I'm happy to go into more details if you'd like.
Just to go a little bit more deep on that, all women should wear the hijab. Doesn't matter the religion, correct? It's mandated by Allah that women supposed to cover.
So I've
their
heard
head.
people making the argument that in Christianity, there's the concept of hijab, that apparently in the Bible it says if a woman doesn't cover her hair, then shave her head. This isn't my field, right? So, don't take my word for it. Do your own research. In Judaism, the same thing. There's a concept of hijab. If you just YouTube Moscow, the year 1900, New York, the year 1900, London, the year 1900, and they show these videos of people just going about in these cities, what you will find is that literally all the women have their hair covered. So this image of the woman wearing short shorts and a tank top and flaunting her hair is a very new thing. As far as I'm aware, it's a very new thing. And I'm not saying all women used to cover their hair the way we know, or what we call to be hijab, throughout all of human history and all of society, but women have always maintained a certain clothing style, and men, by the way, because now you have these trends of men wearing short shorts and kind of gross things. It's just the Western world glorifies the human body and sexualizes the human body in a way that is bizarre, right? And anybody who lives outside of America will realize the extent to which the human body is objectified in America, maybe even the West in general. So hijab is a type of barrier and a counter movement to that.
I have a comment to that. We were part of a group. We were part of a group that we went to Mexico to educate the new Muslims. And we donated a lot of stuff, and they were doing workshops. And it was funny because when we were in Mexico, we felt so comfortable. Nobody looked at us. Nobody cared how we look. We were wearing hijab, and everybody was just comfortable with us. And when we came back, and you're like, oh, we're back, It's only here in America that you feel like that.
Yeah.
That was our own experience, right, Norma? In Mexico, we were like very welcome wearing hijab.
Yeah.
All right, just looking at time, maybe about another 10 minutes or so. So any questions, comments? Great questions, by the way, today.
Hi. So another question that I had, are all good deeds valid, and do they all count, or is it more of like the intention? Because I know sometimes it's like a reminder, like, oh, if I go give money to this person, I'm gonna get rewarded, so I'm gonna do it.
or like that state of mind, like does it still count? Do you still get rewarded?
So sincerity is about not what sincerity isn't about why you do something, like what's in it for you. It's not about that, but rather sincerity is who do you want your reward from? Who do you want your reward from? Because if you do a good deed hoping that God will give you X, Y, and Z, then that's sincere because you want it from God, not from anyone else. And on top of that, God promises you reward for doing the good deeds. So some people, I hear this a lot. A lot of people have this feeling. And I think it's just an American thing where, yeah, if I do this because I want reward, isn't that insincere? Isn't that kind of selfish? But God is the one who's saying he's going to give it to you. Right? You're not making this up. It's like, okay, God, I'll only do this if you do X, Y, and Z. No, God is the one saying, I'm going to give you this if you do this. So we do it because, God is promising us some things. So there's no insincerity there.
Where can we find more information about for people who are trying to learn about Islam? Where would you recommend Google or would you recommend other sites
I
better?
recommend Brother Jamal.
Brother Jamal, besides him, he's always busy.
I mean, he has, I'm sure, a bunch of resources, right? So get the resources from him.
Okay.
But I think the question is, what books? Now, I'm guessing, what's his name? Hamad, I think? Jarir? No, his first name. His first name is Jarir? Okay. I'm sure he has a collection of books for, people interested in Islam. So
Well, the people who ask me, they're like teens and they're more into like looking on the phones, they're grabbing a book. So that's what I was
then give him
asking
Mufti
about.
Mink.
Give me what?
Mufti Mink.
Okay.
A funny guy. You know Mufti Mink, right? No? Oh, wow.
See, I'm old school. I need a book.
Somebody send her the link to Mufti Mink.
I'll be happy to help, inshallah. If you put me in contact, we'll give you some resources, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Kum salam.
Okay, I got a question from a brother. He's learning about Islam, and this is kind of a funny question. Okay, so Sunnah, we get rewarded for following the Sunnah, but where does the Sunnah stop in following the footsteps of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Like, do we, he was just joking, saying, "Do I buy a camel and I get rewarded because the Prophet used to ride a camel," for example, and he was pretty serious, but he was pretty serious, but I didn't know like how to answer him.
The answer is the Sunnah is tied to the Sharia, right? In other words, it's tied to behaving in a religious way.
Yeah.
And the Prophet, he has his prophetic side and he has his human side. To put it differently, sometimes the Prophet most of the time he behaved as a legislator, somebody who represents or manifests what God wants from us. And other times he would behave as a human being, meaning he did this simply because that's just his human self.
Mhm.
There is no legal aspect, there's no religious aspect of this. So the Sunnah is the first, not the second, right? So when the Prophet rode a camel, he didn't ride a camel because that's a source of legislation. He rode it because that's the technology that was available at the time.
Okay.
When he ate certain foods, preferred certain foods, and stayed away from certain foods, it is because of his taste buds. But unless the Prophet makes a statement that clearly indicates this is part of the religion, we don't consider it as part of the religion. All right? So the Sunnah is essentially that which the Prophet told us to do. And he himself did it as an indication of religiosity. That's where the sunnah stops. Beyond that, it's not sunnah. It's not part of the religion. Or it's not, I should say, religious.
It's an awesome answer. Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Can you elaborate more on what sunnah is, please?
So sunnah, the word sunnah means a way, something that happens and it's almost like predictable. And therefore, the technical definition of a sunnah is that which the Prophet did as a form of piety. That's the sunnah. Is that enough, or do you want me to go a little bit more?
Can you just give an example of what the sunnah
Right.
we follow?
So the Prophet tells men to let their beards grow. And he tells men to trim their mustaches. He is saying it in a way that indicates this is part of religious expression. But when it comes to his hairstyle, the hair on his head, sometimes the Prophet had it longer, sometimes it was to his earlobe, sometimes to his shoulder, sometimes it was buzz. But we don't have any statement of his saying, grow your hair. Right? So we can see that the Prophet makes the beard and the mustache as part of religiosity, but he doesn't make the hair on the head as part of religiosities, talking specifically to men. You're welcome.
Time for one more question. Last, quick, Carlos. Close up.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Salam.
Quick question, that'll be regarding the Sunnah, just to clarify, because I was told this, that the Sunnah is what the Prophet said, what he did, and what he approved of, and what he ruled.
And what was the fourth one?
I mean, there's only three, like what he said, what he did, and what he ruled, or approved
What
of.
he what?
Ruled?
Ruled?
Yeah, you know, like for rulings.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you clarify that?
Right. So what the Prophet said, I already mentioned this. What the Prophet ruled doesn't necessarily make it a sunnah, because when the Prophet rules something, he is ruling in terms of worldly affairs. Right? If two people are disputing and he rules a certain ruling, that doesn't mean we are to repeat that per se. It doesn't mean go back to your homes and do the same thing. What it means is that is the law that is to be applied in cases of disputes, right? This is what you use to determine if somebody's transgressing or not. When it comes to the Prophet ﷺ observing something and not commenting on it, again, that doesn't necessarily make it a sunnah. Well, the most, or what we can at least take from it, is that it's permissible, right? So for example, the Prophet, let's just say the Prophet ﷺ saw two people racing, right? They're racing each other. He's watching this. And he doesn't say, oh, you can't do that. He doesn't say that, oh, that's haram, don't do that. What we take from that is that it's permissible, it's halal for two people to race. But it doesn't mean that it is a sunnah for people to race, in a sense that he is literally telling us, you get rewarded for racing each other. These are two different levels, right? Just because something is permissible doesn't mean you get rewarded for doing it. The sunnah is talking about that which you do and you get rewarded for it. So this definition is more, it's the definition of hadith, the science of hadith, the science of the statements of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam. When we talk about the sunnah, at least the way people normally use it, it's a little bit more specific. The sunnah are the things that if you do, if you apply, you get rewarded for it.
All right, we have to call it a session there. Shaykh Tarik Atta, please give it up for dear Shaykh Tarik. It's always As always, thank you so much, Sheikh. We really appreciate
Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
your beautiful answers, your simple answers to kind of help us out
Yeah.
with that as well. So, meaning very clear, straightforward. So, we appreciate
Yeah.
that. And on that note, I personally also want to just welcome back Sheikh Tarik. As you know, you got a little buzz. That means a lot of people that got a buzz around this time. They're coming back from Umrah, the minor pilgrimage. So, Sheikh Tarik just came back last week, right, Sheikh? So Sheikh
Yeah.
Tarik was part of he took the OCIF community or many people from that community, and I'm sure surrounding communities for the Umrah. And so may Allah reward you, may Allah make it of acceptance for you and
Allah.
heavy on your scales on that day, inshallah.
Inshallah, we go together.
Inshallah, I'd love to go with you, Sheikh. Just text me, I'm ready.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
I'm there with you, inshallah. Allah reward you, but welcome back. So thank you so much, ya Sheikh. Quick announcements, and then we'll call it a session. Please, everybody, be patient with me because announcements, of course, are very important so that you know what's going on in your community. Number one, big shout out to my man Francisco. He was translating today, so thank you so much, Francisco. Please give it up for Francisco. And so when I say translating, of course, from English into Spanish, we're blessed. We have many people that are embracing Islam. And for some of them, the Spanish language, they're more comfortable with it. And that's beautiful. So we don't want to have any hurdles in their way. We want them to come and still be able to benefit from the class. So I appreciate every time, week in and week out, our brothers and our sisters stepping up to translate the conversation. So thank you so much. Number two, of course, tonight's main session, as you know, every Friday night after our session, we go into the prayer hall, 7:30. We offer the Isha, the number 5 prayer. And then we come back. I would encourage you guys to come back. I know it's a long day, but every Friday we have a Friday family night program, meaning for the adults, the greater community. Tonight's topic is very interesting. It's Islam's perspective on magic by Sheikh Muhammad Zahid. So he'll be doing the session here. We pray at 7:30. We're done about 7:40-ish. And then we come back inside about 7:45. We'll go ahead and start the session. So please make sure to join us. The kitchen should be open. So if you want to purchase something and support the mosque, you can go and do so as well and bring your food inside here. Next point is our blood drive this coming Sunday. This is amazing. So IIOC is going to be partnering with an affiliate of Cedar Sinai, I think one of the Huntington Health Clinic, if I'm not mistaken. And we're doing a blood drive here at the mosque. We try to do it at least once or twice a year, if I'm not mistaken. So it's where you can go ahead and give blood. And I think the hospital or the clinic is offering a $10 like gift card if you're giving blood. So it's this coming Sunday from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Registration, I think, is encouraged so that you know what slots are available. And you can do that online. So if you just go to iioc.com, you'll see the flyer with the link. You can go ahead and register there. It's a great form of da'wah or inviting people, those people that want to donate blood, let your neighbors, family, friends know. I think it's a really good thing as well. Next thing, of course, don't forget our class on Sunday, our Islam 101 class. Our Instagram page, excuse me, most of you, I think, are following us on Instagram, on IG. If you're not, remember our handle is IIOC Da'wah, DAWAH, one word, IIOC Da'wah. I would encourage you to follow us, comment, engage with us, engage with the post because we're doing our best to educate the masses. So Sunday, the class is going to be slightly different. Regarding the venue, we'll let you know only because Sunday is going to be a very busy day here. So there is an award ceremony going on. There's a blood drive, and of course, our one-on-one class as well. So just make sure to read the WhatsApp text that goes out about the class, exactly where the class is going to be, whether it won't be inside the multi-purpose room. We're just finalizing where the venue will be, God willing, inshallah. It'll be at IOC, but just in a different location. One of the last points, our little donation box. As you guys, as I mentioned a few times, our old donation box, it broke because you guys are giving so many donations, and I appreciate that. So we got a new one for you guys. But this, again, I can't express to you, it helps us to offset the expenses of our program. So you can scan the QR code or you can drop some cash inside there. We would greatly appreciate it. We also need help in the kitchen. As you know, we have a lot of programs going on, specifically in the Da'wah and the New Muslim program. So we really need your help. So afterwards, if I can have at least 2 or 3 volunteers help us out, particularly in the kitchen, that'll be great. You can see our sister Yuki, who will be helping us out in there as well. And lastly, just want to welcome new people that are joining us every week. We're blessed, as I mentioned. Today is no exception. First, I would like to welcome Emily. Emily, if you can just raise your hand. This is Emily's first time here at the mosque. And Emily is, guess who her brother is? Okay, I'll tell you. It's brother Eddie. Eddie, who embraced Islam a few years ago. So today, he's bringing his sister, Emily, here for the first time. So sisters, make sure to welcome our sister Emily. And that's why I pulled Sister Morena out, if it's okay, just so she can welcome Sister Emily outside. So Sister Morena, thank you so much. Number 2, I want to welcome Kaylee. This is Kaylee, if you can just raise your hand. Kaylee is first time here at the mosque as well. And I'm assuming the reason why those questions were coming about Islam was because of Kaylee. So I'm just trying to put the pieces together, right? But this is Kaylee's first time. She's on the journey to learn more about Islam. She's interested in Islam. So to both Kaylee and to Emily, welcome. We are very happy and very honored that you took time to be here today. And if we can be of any assistance, please do let us know. And then lastly, we're going to stay on this side. I just want to appreciate Sister Ivan. How many of you know our Sister Ivan? I think okay. Sister Ivan is what we call a triple OG at IOC. So Sister Ivan, that's why we're making some jokes, because Sister Ivan has been part of IOC years and years. How many years now? Many years. I've seen her kids grow up here at the mosque, right? I think probably when I first started years ago. And so it's just an honor to have Sister Yvonne back. She's always been part of the community, but today's my first time seeing her after a long time. She's just been part and parcel of the community, particularly our new Muslim program and family. So thank you so much. It's great to see you. Of course, Yusuf, her son, is here. Yusuf was here, unless he stepped out. Already started driving with his license. So Yusuf and entire family here. So thank you very much. May Allah reward you for all your sacrifices, everything that you have done, both here and of course outside ISC as well. Back in Mexico, giving da'wah, helping our new Muslim brothers and sisters in Mexico. That's very amazing of you. So thank you very much. And that will be our session here today. Lastly, if I can ask everyone, we have to put the tables away. Again, we have racks, I think, on both sides, but we're going to keep the chairs. So we keep the chairs. We just have to put the tables away. The prayer will start in a few minutes. We'll see everybody in there. Again, Shaykh Tarik, thank you so much. May Allah reward you and bless you. And thank you all. We'll see everybody on Sunday, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.